Hello, my name is Battista, and this is my older adult oral video presentation. In my presentation, I will be reviewing the interview I completed with a friend's neighbor who was kind enough to let me interview him to use his life experiences and apply theories and things that we have learned in this course to them. My interviewee is a 71-year-old male who is divorced and now remarried. So he has a blended family with 5 kids and 7 grandkids. He and his current wife have been married for about 12 years. He tried retirement and decided that that lifestyle wasn't for him. So he works part-time while staying busy with family and many community groups that he's a part of. The developmental stage that I chose to focus on is stage 7, generativity versus stagnation. This is the 7th of Erikson's 8 stages of development. This stage occurs when an individual is between 40 and 65 years old. Those who successfully embody generativity tend to be those who fruitfully completed the earlier stages of psychosocial development. If someone is unsuccessful, this is when they would embody stagnation and inability to connect with others. There are a lot of events that happen in this stage for my interviewee. During the interview, when I told him what ages were covered in this stage, he said, wow, and then he said a lot happened in those years. So first he started with the divorce from his first marriage. He had 3 kids from that first marriage who were already grown. He worked as a police officer, and that is where he met his current wife. She worked at the courthouse. They got married, and she had 2 kids, so they had 5 kids as a blended family. Even though they were adult children already when they got married, this is worth mentioning because he talked about how important family is to him throughout the interview and making family traditions with his kids and grandkids. This is demonstrating a sense of generativity, which is why I included it in his important experiences to mention. He became a grandfather during this stage, which he loves being. My interviewee experienced a tragic loss during this stage as well. His younger brother committed suicide and left behind 6 kids of his own. My interviewee said that this was an extremely sad time in his life, but he used this loss to help others. The next bullet says he retired. He retired from his job, but quickly realized that he missed working, so he went back to the courthouse part-time, which is what he still does today. He became a mentor for younger people in law enforcement. He loves passing on his wisdom and experiences being a veteran and a police officer. He has a lot of experiences to share. My interviewee is also a member of many community groups. He's on the board of governors for law enforcement in the county. He is in a motorcycle club. And all these things demonstrate a strong sense of generativity. The developmental stage challenges and accomplishments. Some of the challenges and accomplishments my interview experienced are early marriage that led to divorce. So that was a challenge that he had to overcome. That if he didn't go through that, then if he didn't work through that, he could have become stagnant. He grew up with an alcoholic mother, so coping with the alcoholic mother led him to working a lot. And he realized that that might be why his father worked a lot, which I will mention later in the later slides. And obviously coping with the loss of his brother is hard, but this also leads me into one of his accomplishments of being a mentor. So losing his brother may have left him feeling a sense of loss of identity because he no longer was a big brother. So being a mentor allows him to adopt that role back and share experiences and wisdom with his mentees. According to Erikson, joining many community activities is an accomplishment. Being on the board of governors shows that he wants to make positive impact on his community and members. His wife is supportive of all the groups he's a part of, so having her support is a big factor in his accomplishing these things. Being involved in his grandchildren's lives is a major value of his as well. Family is everything. He does not want to miss anything, which is a residual effect of losing his brother and not wanting to have and not having a great relationship with his mother and father growing up. Okay, according to Erikson's theory, in this stage, if crises are not resolved adequately, the result could be stagnation. The adult then could become self-absorbed and not care about others, especially younger generations. In my interviewee's life, he said that his father was at work a lot, so he was closer to his mother, but then his mother being an alcoholic, he didn't have too much nurturing stability at home. He missed his father when he was at work, which led him to wanting to be present for his own family today. So the loss of his brother also impacted my interviewee because of guilt, regret, and sadness, all experienced by him, because he mentioned that he allowed the 7-year age gap to make an impact on their relationship. So he feels like he wishes now that he went back, he would have been more closer to his brother and not allowed that 7-year age gap to make as big of an impact. So psychosocial crisis, diversity, and difference. So being a male, when he was younger, he did not seek help for mental health. Nowadays, he's more concerned with his mental health and wants to positively impact other men to do the same. In my annotated bibliography findings, I read an article of a study done in Australia where men between the ages of 14 and 16 were not getting the mental health help that they needed because it was in a doctor setting. So in this study, a group created men's sheds and incorporated a mentor-mentee program. The results showed improved behavior and mental health by both parties. The younger men started behaving better in school, and the older men felt good to connect with the younger generation, educating themselves about today's issues that youth are facing, and the ability to feel a sense of generativity. This also relates to my interviewee's life because when he was younger, they were in a lower socioeconomic status, so his father was always working side jobs and such on weekends, so he had very little time to spend with his father. So the lack of connection with a male when he was younger pushed him to be a positive influence on younger generations today. His Italian culture instills a strong family value, and this is a facilitating factor to his crisis resolution, because if he allowed these other factors to impact him, then maybe he would be stagnant and not move forward. But since he has such a strong values of family, he's able to move forward and change the life cycle, so he will not feel any regret like he felt with his brother when he passed, and he's able to show generativity there. Let's see. Some oppressive experiences. My interviewee experience is mental health instability after the loss of his brother, and mental health treatment was not offered to him, whether that be his lack of knowing what resources were available to him, but now he has a passion to make sure that nobody else experiences that. Since their family was in lower socioeconomic status and his mother was an alcoholic, he was exposed to substance use at a young age. Leading my interviewee to have untreated mental health growing up. So as he got older, he understands that this is something that can be treated, and he began getting help. He found alternate ways to support other people, and that's when he became a mentor for them. He has mentees who are police officers, EMTs, firefighters, and fellow vets because he feels they can connect with like experiences. Okay, as far as the multi-systems lens goes, there are a few that stick out to me. In his family system, first he experienced entropy when his brother committed suicide. This disrupted homeostasis and caused my interviewee to have to realign and find a balance in homeostasis again. Roles play a part in his upbringing because his mother was an alcoholic and his father was working multiple jobs to make ends meet. Rather than adopting those roles himself, he worked towards changing the disrupted roles and meeting societal norms and reaching generativity rather than stagnation. You know what? Let's go back again. In more of my annotated bibliography findings, I researched 2 articles in regards to parent involvement and generativity and children's academic success, as well as social capital. It was found that generativity is beneficial to institutions, helping to strengthen them and pass on cultural traditions. It is important that my interviewee broke the cycle in family dysfunction and is now involved in both his children's and his grandchildren's lives, modeling generativity. Another finding that relates to this from my annotated bibliography was titled Generativity and Life Satisfaction in Caregiving Grandparents. The question at hand was that generative concern from grandparents would correlate positively with life satisfaction along with perceived respect from the grandchild. This is important to note because many times in the interview, my interviewee stated how much he loves being a grandfather. This is giving him a sense of identity and meaning, enhancing happiness overall in his life, and again, modeling generativity. The Freudian theory is my additional theory that I related to my interviewee's life. Freud's theory describes 3 concepts of mental structures thought to be at the makeup of personality: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id is related to the pleasure principle. The ego is the reality principle. And the superego is the conscience. If your id wants something that the superego does not accept, approve of, your ego then makes a compromise and meets the need of the id within societal values. I chose this theory because it talks about also defense mechanisms or unconscious attempts to hide, suppress, or otherwise control the conflict. My interviewee expressed some coping skills in the interview that I can relate to defense mechanisms of the Freudian theory. Some of these being, the first one is repression, which is the unconscious process where painful thoughts and desires are excluded from consciousness and can be revealed by dreams, jokes, and slips of the tongue. So he reports thinking about how life would be if his brother was still here and having dreams about him being present in his life today. Withdrawal is the next one. Withdrawal would be relevant here because he always seemed apprehensive to talk about his brother during the interview. He still seems to avoid talking about the situation to avoid emotions 26 years later. I also would like to apply sublimation here because sublimation is when you experience something that is outside of societal norms and you find an outlet to still suppress those feelings in a appropriate way. So he uses, when he feels really emotional, instead of taking his anger out on somebody else, he uses riding his motorcycle as a coping mechanism to ground himself again. He could displace that anger, like I said, and take it out on his wife or something that's not socially acceptable, but instead he takes a motorcycle out and stabilizes his emotions in a positive way. Theory limitations for Freud's psychosexual theory is that despite Freud being one of the most influential psychologists, his theories are often not applicable to clients' situations, and it can be a stretch to relate problems to daily living to psychosexual development. This theory is almost impossible to define, measure, and test, which are necessary for agencies to implement as a basis, implement in treatment. This is why other psychologists use his theory as a basis for other theories to come from. And this focuses solely on the individual, ignoring the impact of the outside forces. Nonetheless, it is still applicable here in the various ways I defined. My interviewee and I really enjoyed this project and had a good time talking about and hearing about his life cycle. He said this is the first time in a while where I talked about my life in order from start to finish, or in start to now, and it was pretty cool. Another fun fact about him that I couldn't find a place to put in here, but it's just a fun fact that he told me, is that one of his life goals is to live to 100 so that he gets a letter and a phone call from the president. Anyway, I thought that this project was pretty fun, and I hope that you all enjoyed it. Thanks. And here are my references.